I've been a 12.9-inch iPad Pro user for over 2 years now, but with the release of the new M4 iPad Pro, I've actually decided to downsize this year to the 11-inch model, and in this video I'm going to tell you all the reasons why, and also explain the one massive thing which has completely wrecked my iPad use. So let's get into it. The truth is, over the last year or so, I started using my 12.9-inch iPad Pro less and less as time went on. And look, I used to love my 12.9-inch iPad Pro. The power, the screen, the features and everything were perfect for me. And at my home office, I had this really wonderful setup for it where it was next to my monitor all the time. I used to be able to put it off the stand and use it as an iPad and then put it back there and have it as this really nice smart second screen. But that really kind of changed when I got into this studio space. I found myself being a lot more mobile in terms of what I was doing. So I was always coming in or out of the space, and I was going to events and I was going to different places to meet different people, and I just found I was reaching for my iPad mini pretty much all of the time. Initially I thought it was because I didn't have this nice setup like the one I did at home, but even after recreating that and having my iPad next to my monitor, I just found every time I needed to do something else with it, I would reach for the mini and just leave the iPad there. And don't get me wrong, I was still using it for editing photos or for sketching out big video ideas or for just doing more intense research based stuff, but I rarely found the kind of bigger screen size to be that useful for what I was doing. Then when Apple put out the M4 iPad Pro, I had a demo unit of the 13-inch one, and while I was excited to use all the new features, I found that I'd just fallen back into the same pattern where I was just leaving it at the studio or just having it next to my monitor and not really using it as an iPad anymore, and that felt like a real shame. So I decided for the first time in years to go for the smaller or more standard 11-inch version, and I'm really happy I did because it's addressed pretty much all of those issues. And look, the M4 version of the iPad Pros are probably the best ever to jump over to that 11-inch version because they're finally being treated the same. Both of these iPads have the same tandem OLED technology for their screens, and they look incredibly stunning. Beforehand, you had to always go for the bigger version of the iPad Pro to get the new screen technology, and you don't anymore, and that's really, really great. You're also both getting the new Apple Pencil Pro, which is a feature I really love, and you can spec them both exactly the same too, so they're finally on a level playing field. The only difference now is the slimness. The 13-inch larger iPad is actually slimmer than the 11-inch, but you wouldn't really notice unless you held them both together. So I ended up actually buying the base model of the 11-inch iPad Pro. So that's the 9-core M4 processor, the 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. And those specs for me are going to be absolutely fine. I actually went back and looked at my old iPad backups and my usage, and I've never actually used over 160GB, even when I had loads of games and a few designs on there and things like that. So spec wise, that's going to be fine for me. Obviously the M4 chip is brand new, and even with this 8GB of RAM version, it's still going to run the desktop experience, it's still going to run the latest games, and it's going to do everything for years and years. So this is going to be the one I'm moving forward with. And this time round as well, I didn't even buy a keyboard because it doesn't really fit into my use case anymore. So I just picked up the Folio case and the Apple Pencil Pro. I've kind of gone back to basics on the iPad. This video is sponsored by Anker and their Prime line of chargers and cables. If you're like me and you've got loads of devices that all need charging pretty much at the same time, then you'll want to check these out. First up is the A2345, which is a desktop charger with 250 watts of power. This can charge up to 6 devices at the same time and includes an LCD display which shows the power going out of each port, and a twist button control to adjust the power priority of each port too. That's followed by the smaller but still powerful A2683, which also powers up to 6 devices, but it's nice and compact this time round. These are both perfect to have around the house or in your desk setup, but I like to use them here in the studio. I have one in my locker for charging all of my camera batteries at the same time, and another on our spare desk for charging anything else we need. My favourite though is the small and mighty 100-watt portable wall charger, which not only has 3 ports for charging, but it also folds, making it wonderful to carry around. Plugs here in the UK are pretty huge, so I really appreciate this. Following all of those up, Anker also released the A88E2 USB-C cable, which supports up to 240 watts of power, and its braided construction makes it super durable too. So if you feel like your setup needs a bit of an upgrade, or you just want to browse the Prime lineup, check out the link in the description and use the code ANKERPRIME03 for a little discount too. Another reason is I wanted to be more honest with myself about what my actual workflow is with an iPad. And to be honest, most of it is touch and pencil based use. I'm forever taking notes on my iPad. I'm always editing photos on there. I'm always sketching out new product ideas for Heroku on there. And a lot of the times I just like using it for research and for staying organized across this channel. And I still want it to be good enough to put next to my monitor for the universal control setup, which I really like. And now that I am a lot more mobile than I was, I need it to be a real simple portable device which I don't have to think about taking with me. On a side note as well, I also wanted to do a lot more gaming this time round with the iPad, because I've kind of ignored that for a while and it's something I used to really enjoy, and the 12.9 inch version was always very cumbersome for that, but the 11 inch version feels a lot better, so I'd like to do that with it too. And I'm really happy to say that it's been working way better. I've started using it loads more. I've been sliding it into my bag every time I leave the studio because it's so slim and light and serves this different purpose than my laptop now that I might as well, and it's been really nice to have that back. Obviously, another thing that I've been debating is, will the 11-inch screen size be big enough? Because I've been so used to the larger iPad. And I'm pretty happy to say that this is clearly the sweet spot. There's a reason why Apple had this as like the main iPad when they first launched them, because it kind of fits everything on there really nicely. Now, if you do use Stage Manager and have all your floating windows around, it is a little bit more cramped, but you can still make it work. But if you're like me and prefer using split view and slide over, which I really do, it's still absolutely fine for that. I still find there's plenty of room to get everything you need done. But obviously, one of the major concerns for me is if I'm designing wallpapers on here, which is something we do a lot, is this canvas size going to be enough? And I'm really happy to say that that's kind of been absolutely fine as well. To be honest, having a little bit more space is nice on the larger one, but this hasn't hampered me in any way. And in fact, because it is smaller and I've been taking it home so much more with me, I had a little bit more time to research some new techniques, and that became the foundation of this new pack. I'll link it below if you want to check it out. And designing it on here on this smaller iPad was completely fine. It didn't actually hamper anything in any way. So I've actually been really happy with the 11-inch screen size. The one thing though which did completely kind of change my iPad use and somewhat wreck it in a way though was this beautiful little machine. This is the MacBook Air with M3, and to be honest, I was picking up the Air pretty much every time I left the studio over my 13-inch iPad Pro because it was smaller, lighter, it had more power, and it just fit my workflows so much better. One of the reasons I used to love iPads is because they had these amazing screens, plenty of power under the hood, and I didn't have to baby them on battery life, so I could go out for an entire day and not think about charging or have any of that anxiety at all. But since the Apple Silicon Revolution, these MacBook Airs now have all of those things, and that really kind of wrecked my iPad usage because video editing is still my main thing. I make these videos and I make short form videos. I've got full Final Cut on here, and I've got every single tool I could possibly need with the MacBook there. And you can still do that stuff on iPad, but I'm so in tune with a MacBook that it just became my default choice. And the funny thing is, this M3 MacBook Air is still a hair thinner and a hair lighter than the brand new M4 13-inch iPad Pro with the keyboard attached, which is just wild to think about. So with this 11-inch, I'm just letting the iPad be the best iPad it can be again, and I really do think this size is the perfect way to do it. And look, I had this dream, which I'm sure many of us did, of running my entire workflow and life from the iPad and having this awesome shape-shifting computer to do everything I need it to do. So I've stopped trying to force iPadOS into my creator workflows. I'm just going to let the iPad be the companion device for the Mac that it's supposed to be, because that's what fits my workflows right now. I think a lot of us were expecting potentially a little bit more from iPadOS 18, but that didn't really come. And I completely applaud people that can still work from an iPad for everything. It's incredible, and I'm still kind of jealous of those people, but I'm fine with that not being me at this point in time. After everything I've said, you're probably thinking, well, why on earth are you going for the M4 version? An M1 version of an iPad Air or a previous iPad Pro would not only be better value, but still suit everything that I'm doing. And while I completely understand a lot of that to be true, I'm going to check my bias a little bit here, but I'm a tech fan, so I like having the new tech. It's exciting to me. And as a content creator, I want to make videos about that tech. I like talking about new stuff. And to be honest, I really dig that new Apple Pencil Pro. And finally, there is this faint glimmer of hope in me that the M4 iPad Pro will evolve into a computer that I can use for everything at some point. And I still think that that could happen. The iPad right now feels like the only computer which is still shape-shifting into its final form. It's not quite there yet. And, you know, I want to see where that goes. Although general advice is never buy a product on what it might be, buy it on what it is now. And I am still happy with what it does right now. So that pretty much rounds up this video. If anyone else is an 11-inch user, let me know in the comments below, or if you switched either way to the bigger one or the smaller one, or even the mini, leave those in the comments below because I always love to hear from you. And as always, I'll see you all in the next one.